Then you shall bring the bull before the tent of meeting, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the bull. You shall slaughter the bull before the Lord at the doorway of the tent of meeting. So they're bringing this bull to the tent, and when they slaughter, this is what they would do. They would lay their hands on the head, and then they would slit the throat and bleed the animal out. So verse 12 says, you shall take some of the blood of the bull and put it on the horns of the altar with your finger, and you shall pour out all the blood at the base of the altar. You shall take all the fat that covers the entrails and the lobe of the liver and the 2 kidneys and the fat of the fat that is on them, and offer them up in smoke on the altar. Okay, so let's go back here. The bull, they've killed the bull, they've slit the throat, they bled it out, they put some of the blood on the altar horns of the altar. The rest of the blood is poured out around the altar. They take the fat that covers the entrails, so the fat around the guts, the lobe of the liver, so the fat that's on the liver, on the lobe of the liver, the 2 kidneys, so they take the 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them, and they burn that on the altar. 100%, burn it all on the altar, just all that fat. The flesh of the bull and its hide and its refuse shall be burnt with fire outside the camp. It is a sin offering. So this is the sin offering. The bull is the sin offering. They burn parts of the entrails, the fat of the inside on the altar right before the tent of meeting. And they take the rest of the bull as the sin offering outside of the camp. And they burn him outside the camp. And this is a complete offering, a burnt offering to the Lord. Now, who else was sacrificed outside the camp? They took Jesus out on a hill outside of the camp. And they hung him on a cross 2,000 years ago. And he was put on that cross as our sin offering. So this bull represents what's going to happen in a few thousand years. What's going to happen with Christ. And notice the bull is consumed by fire outside the camp. And only certain parts of the bull is offered up on the altar. So verse 15, you shall also take the one ram, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram, and you shall slaughter the ram, and shall take its blood and sprinkle it around the altar. And so this will consecrate the altar. Then you shall cut the ram into pieces, and wash its entrails and its legs, and put them with the pieces and its head. You shall offer it up in smoke, the whole ram on the altar. It is a burnt offering to the Lord. It is a soothing aroma, an offering by fire to the Lord. So the first ram, so remember there's a bull and there's 2 rams. This first one, the bull was the sin offering. It's burnt outside the camp. This first ram is a consecration offering, and it is burnt holy on the altar. It's all to the Lord. God loves a good barbecue. So this is God's barbecue, and he's going to smell that barbecue, and that's going to please him, because they're doing what he wants them to do. They are sacrificing to him. They are obeying him. Obedience is better than the sacrifice. Well, this is them proving that they can obey. All right, verse 19. Then you shall take the other ram. So this is the second ram. And Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram. You shall slaughter the ram and take some of its blood and put it on the lobes of Aaron's right ear, and on the lobes of his sons' right ears, and on the thumbs and their right hands, and on the big toes of the right feet. Okay, so the right ear, the right thumb, and the right toe. Okay, that's odd.
The power side. The power side. The blessing side.
The blessing side? Thank you for that. So it's the right side is the blessing. So like you sit on the throne, if you're seated at the right hand of someone, it's the seat of power, the seat of blessing. So when Christ sits at the right hand of the Father, so this is representing the right side, and that's a good point. Thank you. Then you shall take some of the blood that is on the altar and some of the anointing oil and sprinkle it on Aaron and on his garments and on his sons' garments with him. So he and his garments shall be consecrated. So a little bit of blood, a little bit of oil, and it's going to be sprinkled on their clothes. And that's going to consecrate them. It's going to separate them. They're going to be separated for the work of the Lord, as well as his sons and his sons' garments with him. So this will consecrate them, and they will be set apart from all others. Verse 22 says, you shall also take the fat from the ram, and the fat tail, and the fat that covers the entrails, and the lobe of the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, and the right thigh, for it is a ram of ordination. Now, we've done the same thing as with the bull, right? So we did, the fat on the entrails, the fat on the liver, the fat on the kidneys, and we added one thing, the right thigh. Now, what's this remind you of? Remember back in Genesis, when Jacob was wrestling with God, when he was wrestling with the pre-incarnate Christ, and he's reached in and he tore his right thigh, and it crippled him, and it got his attention, right? And so God sometimes reaches down and he gets our attention. And so this is a memorial of what happened when he got crippled, when Jacob got crippled, and then he named him Israel after that, which is the name of all the nation of Israel is named after Jacob. His name was changed to Israel that day because of he submitted himself to the Lord on that day. And so when they make this sacrifice of the second ram, they commemorate this with this right thigh. And verse 23 says, and 1 cake of bread and 1 cake of bread mixed with oil, and 1 wafer from the basket of unleavened bread, which is set before the Lord. So now the basket that they brought in, now we're going to start using pieces out of this basket. Verse 24, and you shall put all these in the hands of Aaron and in the hands of his sons, and shall wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. So we have the fat of the second ram, of the fat pieces, entrails and the kidney and the lobe of the liver, the right thigh, and they're going to wave it to the Lord. I'm not sure how they do that, but just imagine them waving this to the Lord, and
They wave it in 4 different directions: east, west, north, and south. And then they wave it up and they wave it down.
Okay.
That's to cover all directions.
Okay. That's good to know. Our resident expert in the Jewish faith here. So appreciate that. So this is a wave offering. Which verse? Thank you. You shall take them from their hands and offer them up in smoke on the altar, on the burnt offering for a soothing aroma before the Lord. It is an offering by fire to the Lord. So it's a complete consumed burnt offering on the altar. So they take those that they just got done waving to the Lord and put it on the altar and burn it all up. So like the bull, these special parts are offered completely to the Lord on the altar. But notice what happens next. Things start to change just a little bit. It says in verse 26, then you shall take the breast of Aaron's ram of ordination. This is the second ram, because they burnt the first ram up all the way. So the second ram. And they're going to take the breast, which is the front half, and wave it as a wave offering before the Lord. So you're going to do another wave offering, and it shall be your portion. In verse 27, you shall consecrate the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the heave offering. So this is the other thigh that wasn't burned up in the total burnt offering. So you have the left thigh that is going to be for Aaron and his sons. And only Aaron and his sons can eat this because it's a consecrated offering. So you shall consecrate the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the heave offering, which was waved and which was offered from the ram of ordination, from the one which was for Aaron and from the one which was for his sons. It shall be for Aaron and his sons as their portions forever from the sons of Israel, for it is a heave offering. Now, this word heave offering, I didn't understand what heave meant, but if you was to read the Hebrew here, it'd say, for it is a offering. It's an offering of the offering. It's the same word. It's how you use it. So they put in this version heave, which it could also be another way to say it's a contribution of the offering. So it's contributing to you, Aaron, and your people, and your sons, and their sons, and their sons. This is their portion of the offering. So it's the offering of the offering. Does that make sense? So, and it shall be a heave offering from the sons of Israel, from the sacrifices of their peace offerings, even their heave offerings to the Lord. So all the peace offerings will be a heave offering as well. They get this certain portion of that, and that's the priest's portion of this. And that pays the priest, right? That's a portion that pays the priest. Because there's going to be a lot of people involved in the priestly duties, and we're going to see that later on. There's other Levites that aren't the priests, but they're still the Levites that will fall into tearing down the tent and putting the tent up and moving, and so they have all their duties too. But these offerings here are for the priests. Verse 29, the holy garments of Aaron shall be for his sons after him, that in them they may be anointed and ordained. So the holy garment that we talked about, how they built it or made it out of all the different materials, the colors, and the jewels and stuff, and the breastpiece, and the ephod, and the holy underwear. It's all going to be passed down to his sons, and then his sons after that. And then as it wears out, they will fix. They fix certain portions of it, but the high priest garments. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading this. The high priest garment, they would not repair or reuse it. They would hide it.
Only once a year.
Oh, that would only come out once a year. Oh, that's why it lasted so long. Okay. So when they would consecrate when they would bring the blood into the Holy of Holies, they would wear that. The other time they would just wear the priestly.
Actually, in the Holy of Holies, when he takes the blood, it's a white gown that he wears. He don't even wear the ephod.
Oh, really? Okay. And we'll get to there. We'll get there. It'll tell us that later then. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a tradition. That's actually written. Okay. So we'll get to that point later. Okay. So where was I at? For 7 days. I need to. I know, right? Forgive me. All right. For 7 days, the one on his. For 7 days, the one of his sons, who is priest in his stead, shall put them on when he enters the tent of meeting to minister in the holy place. All right, verse 31, you shall take the ram of ordination and boil its flesh in a holy place. Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the breast that is in the basket, or the bread that is in the basket at the doorway of the tent of meeting. So they're going to boil this food, this meat that's left over after the burnt offering of the second ram, and then the bread that's in there, and they're going to eat it at the doorway of the tent of meeting. Thus they shall eat those things by which atonement was made for their ordination and consecration. But a layman shall not eat them, because they are holy. So only the priests can eat this offering, what's left of this offering, after they boiled it. And then So the portion that was not consumed on the altar of the fire, the second ram was offered up for their ordination and consecration, was boiled in a holy place, and they ate it at the doorway of the tent. Okay, everybody clear on that? So these are all ordinances that have specific meanings all the way through, and we don't have time to just dive in and get through all the meanings, or we would be here all day and we wouldn't be able to have a gospel channel. And Michael Ann would really be mad at me. So, yes, so we'll move on. So if any of the flesh of the ordination or any of the bread remains until morning, they shall burn the remainder with fire. It shall not be eaten because it is holy. So this is like Passover.